Dude, this is crazy. Trump just fired Lisa Cook. Yeah, sitting Federal Reserve governor, gone. And honestly, most people out there don't even know what the Fed really does. But let me tell you, this move, it's massive. Because the Fed isn't just some office in DC, man. These are the people who decide how much you're paying on your home loan, your car loan, your credit card interest. They decide how fast or slow the economy runs. Basically, they've got their hands on the steering wheel of America's money, and Trump just grabbed that wheel and yanked. Now, Lisa Cook, she's not some random name in the headlines. She's the first black woman to ever sit on the Fed's board. She's a legit economist, a fighter for fairness, someone who spent her whole career studying how economies grow and how people get left behind. And now she's right in the middle of this insane storm. Trump says fraud, she says it's bogus. But beneath all of it, the real story here is power. Who controls America's money? That's what this fight is all about. And trust me, this one's going to get messy. All right, so let's back up a little. Before we dive into this whole Trump versus Federal Reserve showdown, you got to know who Lisa Cook actually is. Because trust me, this isn't some random government worker who got caught in the crossfire. Lisa Cook is kind of a big deal. She grew up in Georgia, small town roots. Not the kind of place where people usually dream about running the world economy. But she had this crazy drive for education. She studied at Spelman College. Then she's over at Oxford as a Marshall Scholar and eventually lands at Berkeley. That's like the Olympics of education, dude. She's out there leveling up at every step. And here's the thing. She wasn't just book smart. Lisa Cook's research was about real people. She wasn't sitting in some ivory tower talking theory. She looked at how violence, racism, and inequality actually hurt innovation and growth. Like, her work literally showed that when you hold people back, when you don't let everyone have a shot, the whole economy loses. That's powerful, man. That's not politics, that's math. That's data. She went on to teach at Michigan State, published tons of respected work, advised presidents, yeah, plural. She worked on Obama's Council of Economic Advisors, and when Biden came in, he tapped her for the Federal Reserve Board. And let's be real, that was historic. The first black woman ever confirmed to that role. That's not just a line in the history books, that's breaking through barriers that were locked tight for more than a century. And listen, being on the Fed board, that's huge. These are the people who decide interest rates, how much money is flowing in the system, how to fight inflation. It's literally like having your hands on the engine of the world's biggest economy. And Cook brought something new to the table, a focus on the human side of economics. Not just Wall Street numbers, but how decisions hit real families, small businesses, and people who usually get ignored in those boardrooms. So yeah, Lisa Cook was making waves. She wasn't some silent vote in the background. She stood out, and that made her a target. Because when you've got a voice, when you're breaking barriers, and when you're not afraid to push back, that's when the powerful start paying attention, and not always in a good way. So when Trump went after her, it wasn't just firing an economist, it was firing someone who represented progress, diversity, and independence inside one of the most powerful institutions in the world. And that's why this story hits so hard. It's not just about money, it's about power, representation, and the future of the system that runs your life. All right, now here's where it gets crazy. Trump walks in and says, Lisa Cook, you're out. Just like that. You're fired. A Federal Reserve governor. And everybody's like, wait, can he even do that? Because the Fed is supposed to be independent, man. It's literally built so politicians can't just mess with it whenever they feel like it. And yet here we are. So what's Trump's reason? He points to these allegations of mortgage fraud from back in 22 mortgage applications where he claims Lisa Cook wasn't fully on it. Now, let's be real. Cook herself has flat out denied it. She called the accusations bogus, political, straight up nonsense. And honestly, the timing, super suspicious. 4 years later, suddenly this becomes a big enough deal to kick her off the Fed. Come on. But here's the thing. Trump doesn't just operate in the world of rules, he operates in the world of power. And right now he wants control of the Fed. Why? Interest rates. Trump has been screaming for lower rates for years. He wants cheap money, easier borrowing, faster growth, more spending. But a lot of the Fed governors, including Cook, were cautious. They wanted to fight inflation, keep the economy stable, and that clashes with Trump's whole vibe of make the economy explode right now. So by firing Cook, Trump isn't just removing one person. He's sending a message, I'm the guy in charge here. And let me tell you, dude, that freaked people out. Legal scholars are on TV saying this might be unconstitutional. Democrats are furious. Even some Republicans are like, this could mess with the markets because the whole idea of the Fed is independence. The second you rip that away, people start wondering if the world's most powerful economy just became someone's personal toy. And the markets, they hate uncertainty. Investors are glued to the headlines wondering what this means for interest rates, for inflation, for the dollar. You don't just yank a governor off the Fed without sending shockwaves everywhere. It's like pulling a pilot out of the cockpit mid-flight. Even if you've got backup, everyone on the plane is suddenly nervous. So yeah, Trump's move is bold, dramatic, and classic Trump. He thrives on chaos, on pushing limits, on doing what nobody else would dare. But this one's different because now it's not just politics, it's money. It's the system, it's the rules that keep the global economy from spinning out of control. And whether you love him or hate him, you can't deny Trump just lit a fuse under the Fed. And nobody really knows how big the explosion's going to be. So let's talk about the aftermath. The second Trump announced Lisa Cook was out, Washington turned into a circus. Democrats lost their minds. They're on TV, they're on social media, they're yelling, this is illegal, this is a coup against the Fed. They're treating it like the end of independence as we know it. And honestly, they've got a point. Because if a president can just start firing Fed governors whenever he wants, what's even left of the Fed's independence? On the flip side, Trump supporters are like, hell yeah, finally someone's shaking things up. They're cheering because they see the Fed as part of that big swampy system that holds back growth. And to them, Cook is just another bureaucrat standing in the way of cheaper loans, lower rates, and a booming economy. So politically, it's a total showdown. Two sides looking at the same move and seeing completely different things. To one side, it's destruction. To the other, it's liberation. And while politicians scream at each other, the markets are freaking out in their own way. Because here's the deal. Markets hate uncertainty. Investors don't care about left versus right. They care about stability. They care about knowing the rules of the game. And when you see a president tossing Fed governors like pawns off a chessboard, suddenly you start asking, what's next? Who's safe? Are interest rates even real anymore? Or are they just political decisions now? The stock market wobbled the second this news hit. Bond yields jumped around. Currency traders started dumping and grabbing dollars like hot potatoes because this is uncharted territory. Nobody knows if Trump can even legally do this. But the fact that he tried, that's enough to spook people. Because once a precedent is set, it doesn't matter if it's challenged in court. The damage is already done. The trust is shaken. And let's not forget, foreign markets are watching too. Countries around the world depend on the stability of the US dollar. It's the reserve currency, the anchor of global trade. If America's central bank suddenly looks like a political football, why should anyone else trust it? That's the kind of question that makes global leaders sweat. Meanwhile, ordinary people, you, me, everybody, are caught in the middle. Because the Fed's decisions ripple right into our lives. Interest rates affect mortgages, car payments, small business loans. If the Fed loses independence and starts bowing to political pressure, we're talking about inflation running wild, bubbles blowing up, and recessions hitting harder. It's not just numbers on a screen. It's food prices, rent, job security, real life, man. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Legal experts are saying Trump may not even have the authority to fire Lisa Cook, so this could turn into a full-blown court battle. Imagine that, America's economy hanging on a legal showdown over whether a president can nuke Fed independence. It's like a Netflix political thriller, except it's real life and your paycheck is on the line. So yeah, the political chaos is insane. The markets are jittery, and the people, they're left wondering if the economy just got shoved into a cage match between Trump and the Fed. No matter which way this goes, one thing's clear. This isn't just business as usual. This is history being written in real time. And the ending? Still totally unknown. All right, let's bring this down to earth. Because I know what you're thinking. Okay, Joe. Trump fired some economist, Lisa Cook, the Fed, politics, whatever. But why the hell should I care? I've got bills to pay, a job to keep, maybe a family to feed. And you're right, man. That's exactly why this matters. Because the Federal Reserve, the people Lisa Cook worked with, they quietly influence almost every part of your financial life. Take interest rates, for example. That's the big one. You know, when you get a car loan and they tell you it's going to be like 7% interest, or your credit card hits you with those insane rates, that's all tied to the decisions the Fed makes. When the Fed raises rates, borrowing money gets more expensive. When they cut rates, it's cheap, and that trickles down into everything. Your mortgage, your rent, the cost of groceries, because if businesses are paying more to borrow, they pass it on to you. It's like this invisible hand squeezing or relaxing your wallet. Now imagine if those decisions weren't made by economists looking at data, but by politicians looking at votes. That's the nightmare scenario here. Because sure, in the short term, cutting rates feels good. Everyone's happy, cheap loans, booming stock market, everything looks awesome. But long term, that's when inflation bites. Prices shoot up, your savings buy less, your paycheck feels smaller. And when inflation runs wild, it's always regular people, middle class, working families, who take the hardest hit. Rich folks, they can move money around, hedge their bets, but you and me, we're stuck paying higher prices on everyday stuff. Lisa Cook represented that check against chaos. She was one of the people saying, hey, let's be careful, let's not let the economy overheat, let's think about stability. And that's what the Fed is supposed to do. Be boring, predictable, steady. It's like having referees in a game. You don't want the refs to care about who wins, you want them to enforce the rules. The second the refs start playing favorites, the whole game's screwed. That's what we're flirting with here. And don't forget, the US dollar isn't just America's money, it's the world's money. If people lose trust in the Fed, if they think rates are just being manipulated for politics, then why would countries keep their reserves in dollars? That's when you start hearing whispers about China's yuan, or digital currencies, or gold becoming safer bets. And if the dollar loses its dominance, buckle up, because life in America gets way more expensive. Imports cost more, traveling costs more, inflation gets nastier. It's a global ripple effect that starts right at your kitchen table. Now let's zoom in even more. Say you're running a small business, a cafe, a gym, whatever. You need a loan to expand, buy equipment, hire people. If rates are unstable because the Fed's being jerked around, you're screwed. You can't plan, you can't predict costs. That means fewer jobs, slower growth, less opportunity for everyday folks. This isn't abstract, man. This is your neighbor trying to get a mortgage, your cousin trying to start a business, your own paycheck shrinking because inflation ate it alive. And here's the motivational punch, man. This isn't just about Trump or Lisa Cook or some fight in Washington. It's a reminder of how important independence is in government, in business, even in your own life. When you let someone else control your decisions, when you let politics or pressure override your principles, it might feel good in the moment, but long term, it's chaos. Independence is hard, it's boring, it doesn't always make headlines, but it's what keeps the whole thing standing. So yeah, you should care, because this fight over Lisa Cook isn't just about who sits in a fancy office in DC. It's about whether your money, your job, your future is being guarded by data and reason, or hijacked by politics and power. And once you lose that line, once trust is gone, it's almost impossible to get it back. So here we are, Lisa Cook, Donald Trump, the Federal Reserve. It's more than just a headline. It's a snapshot of a bigger fight, the fight over power, independence, and what it means to stand your ground when the pressure is insane. Think about it. Lisa Cook didn't get to where she is by playing it safe. She broke barriers. She took hits. She walked into rooms where nobody looked like her, nobody expected her to have a voice, and she spoke anyway. That takes guts, man. And whether you agree with her politics or not, you can't deny the courage it takes to be that person in that arena. To say, I'm here and I'm not backing down. And Trump, love him or hate him, you gotta admit, he's bold. He doesn't care about the rule book. He doesn't care about tradition. He'll push and he'll push hard. And that's why this clash is so explosive. It's two forces colliding, one that's about independence and principle, and one that's about raw power and control. And that's why everybody's watching, because the outcome doesn't just affect Washington, it affects you, me, all of us. But here's the takeaway, man. In life, you're always going to face pressure. There will always be people who try to control your decisions, who want you to play by their rules, who think they can yank you out of your own story. The real question is, do you fold? Or do you stand firm, like Cook, and fight for your independence? Because integrity, that's the one thing nobody can fire you from. Positions, jobs, titles, those come and go. But your integrity, your principles, the stand you take when the world is watching, that lasts. That's legacy. And whether you're running the Federal Reserve or just running your own life, that's what makes the difference. So yeah, this isn't just a political drama. It's a reminder. Guard your independence, protect your principles, and when the pressure's on, remember, power fades, but integrity echoes forever.